The Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection released about a week ago, and it's safe to say that the control schemes for it were pretty janky. So as promised on stream last week, today I have for you a best settings guide for this game. Now I'm not saying that these are the absolute best controls that you must use, because everyone will have their preferences. So this guide is essentially what I find is best for me, and therefore what I recommend choosing. Now in Battlefront 2 there are 5 control schemes. There's Infantry, Vehicle, Starfighter, Jedi and Turret. Turret and Vehicle I haven't touched. Jedi I did a little tweak. Starfighter I just swapped something around, and Infantry is where the main meat of the stuff happens. So I'll start off with the Infantry. Now for this, the default sensitivity was 4 on the X and Y, and I have changed those both to 6 just to make it a little bit quicker. But as for the control scheme, I've changed this to a point where it's a lot more like Call of Duty and Battlefield, and just how I ultimately play first-person shooters. So in typical fashion, I now aim down the sight with L2 instead of pressing R3, and this means that the secondary attack had to go somewhere, and I put that onto L1 because that's essentially the same as throwing a tactical grenade on Call of Duty. So I'm essentially doing the same thing with the same button there, which is really nice. But because I replaced L1, which is where secondary next had to go, I had to put that somewhere. And in pretty much all first-person shooters, I actually press down R3 to jump. Now R3 originally was zoom, so that had nothing, so I put jump on there. And the reason I do this in first-person shooters is so that I can jump and move around a corner, or just aim better whilst jumping. So in something like Fortnite especially, this is actually super useful, and it's helped me win a lot of gunfights. Now I know in Battlefront you can't really move the camera whilst you're jumping, so it's not really a big deal. It's just so that this is fairly similar to how I play other first-person shooters, and that means X was empty, and that is where I then put secondary next. Apart from that, I've kept everything the same. It's mostly just so I'm playing this game a bit more like how I do with Call of Duty and Fortnite and other first-person shooters. So these are the controls that I would recommend you use if you play a lot of first-person shooters, but if you don't, this one might prove a little bit weird for you. As for the Starfighter controls, like I said, I've kept the sensitivity and pretty much everything else the same. I have added the first and third person view to the bottom arrow though, as that was doing nothing. But the main change here is just that the throttle and roll and the pitch and turn have been swapped over. Originally the throttle was on the right stick and the pitch and turn was on the left stick, which is the inverse of what it is on Star Wars Squadrons and Star Wars Battlefront 2 from DICE. So the fact that I've played those quite a lot, my brain wanted to be able to do that, but this game initially wasn't allowing me to do so, so my brain was doing one thing whilst my actual actions were doing something else. So I've turned them around, which means that flying a Starfighter is a better experience overall. Finally then, for Battlefront 2, I have changed the Jedi controls. Now I don't think these apply to blaster heroes at all, but all I've done for this is just put the sensitivity up to 10, because with the first time I played as Darth Vader in the game last week, he was way too slow, and 10 is the max sensitivity, which is a lot more manageable. It's still fairly slow, but I think for this game it works best, and with it being the max I just have to put up with it anyway. But as for the actual control layout itself, this was good. So they are all my changes for Star Wars Battlefront 2, so now let's head over to Star Wars Battlefront 1. So for Star Wars Battlefront 1 then, I've kept everything the same as what I've done in Battlefront 2, so aim down the sight is L2, secondary fire L1, secondary next is X, and then jump is the right stick. As I explained before, this is just so that it's in line with what I use in other first-person shooters, but I did actually keep the sensitivity to the default 4 because it is actually slightly different in this game than it is in Battlefront 2, and 4 works absolutely fine for me, but feel free to obviously tweak it to your heart's content. As for the vehicles and starfighters, I've kept them the exact same. Vehicles in Battlefront 2 are absolutely fine, and they are the same in Battlefront 1. As for starfighters, they aren't particularly common, and they actually had the throttle on the left stick and pitch and turn on the right stick by default anyway, I'm pretty sure, so I haven't had to change anything there. So flying Starfighter on this is now nice and easy. Not that I'll be doing it very often anyway. So guys, they are the best controls that I use for the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection. They're a lot more in line with other games that I play now, so I feel a lot better using them. If you are struggling on the default layout or you want a slight change from the default, then I definitely recommend using this control scheme. And if you do, then please let me know what you think about it in the comments below. That is going to do it from me today though. Thank you all very much for watching. May the Force be with you always.